Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this we're going to be doing the top tier list, basically more or less my god tier list for unique weapon skills and ashes. This is going to be a really fun one. Let's get into the details. So like usual, I'm going to highlight some of the best ones, and then I'm going to show different clips and go over slides of the details on all the best ashes in the game as far as the unique ashes go. First off, I'm showing off here is Magma Shower from the Magma Blades, which does immense fire damage and scales directly with Faith. This for me is definitely S tier as far as a unique Ash of War, simply for the fact that a lot of the Demite gods in the game have 0 fire resistance, and it just does immense fire damage in general. It can be buffed with Flame Grant Me Strength and Golden Vow to very, very good success, and it's something you can use to chew through boss HP fairly easily. So I'm definitely going to throw this in the S tier as we finish off the Godskin Noble here. The Magma Blades undoubtedly are one of the better weapons in the game, one of the better somber weapons in the game, and next up also in the S tier, Magwyn's Sacred Spear, which is incredibly powerful and also does fire damage while doing immense bleed damage. Magwyn's Sacred Spear is ridiculously powerful, given the fact that you get the fire damage and then the amount of bleed buildup it can do from a distance. It can also hit through walls as well. You're going to actually see that in this fight here against Malekith. It is an amazing Ash of War in Bloodboon Ritual. It's phenomenal what it can do. Bloodboon Ritual absolutely fits into the S tier category. If you haven't used Magwyn's Sacred Spear for its Ash of War, its unique Ash of War, it's something you definitely got to try. If you're into bleed builds, if you like fire damage in general, Magwyn's Sacred Spear and Bloodboon Ritual will not disappoint. Then being able to hit stuff around corners and through walls is another big bonus. This is incredibly powerful Ash of War and something, again, as I mentioned, that you definitely have to try out if you haven't. And if you're somebody who's already used Bloodboon Ritual, you know how truly powerful it is. Next up is Moonlight Greatsword. Now, Moonlight Greatsword is the Ash of War, the unique Ash of War weapon skill on the Dark Moon Greatsword. The benefit here is that it does a good amount of stance damage, frost, but a big benefit for Moonlight Greatsword is the fact that it's so FP friendly. You get a full minute of being able to use the beams for very minimal FP cost while doing substantial amounts of stance damage, regular damage, and a little bit of frost buildup as well. It's a fantastic Ash of War, and it's absolutely in the S tier. And it's just the fact, as I mentioned, that FP friendliness for the cost that you're getting out of what you're getting out of is high damage and a lot of stance damage in general. It just makes it a great option for mages. It's undoubtedly one of the best weapons in Ashes of War in the game, no doubt. Next up is Marius Executioner Sword, one of my favorite. It has an awesome and unique Ash of War. No, I'm going to butcher this, but it's something along the lines of Eochaid's Dancing Blade. It's like an old Irish word. I don't know why they elected to use that. I don't know the specific lore there. But anyway, the Ash of War, the unique weapon skill, is truly powerful, and it's something that can shred the majority of the bosses in the game. Next up here is Taker's Flames, which, by the way, is one of the most powerful Ashes of War in the game. It's a unique Ash of War on the Blasphemous Blade that heals you while doing substantial amounts of fire damage as well. It's undoubtedly one of the best, if not the best, unique Ash of War in Elden Ring. It's absolutely amazing how powerful it is. This is absolutely one you're going to want to use. And next up on here is one of my favorite weapons in the entire game, and that is the Godslayer's Greatsword, which has that really cool Queen's Black Flame Ash of War. And I know this one's a little bit polarizing in the sense that a lot of people think it might be in the A or the B tier, but for me this is S tier because of the fact that you receive ridiculous amounts of hyper armor with the Queen's Black Flame. You get the percentage damage, you get the fire damage, and you can hit things extremely hard. Granted, you do trade sometimes, but it's an epic Ash of War for me, and it's on the S tier. So to start with the S tier, before we get into all the A tier stuff, we went over Taker's Flame, Moonlight Greatsword, Bloodboon Ritual, the Queen's Black Flame, Magma Shower, Eochaid's Dancing Blade, however you say that. These are all incredibly powerful, unique Ashes of War, and they all fit in the S tier for me. Let's move on to the A tier. Next up here is Bloodhound's Fang with Bloodhound's Finesse. It has a fantastic Ash of War unique weapon skill that can allow you to avoid the majority of boss attacks while doing a fairly good amount of damage, bleed, and it can also be buffed with Bloodflame Blade, and you can also throw greases and the like on it as well. It is a very, very cool Ash of War, unique Ash of War in the sense that you're able to dodge a lot of the attacks while also counterattacking consistently. It's one of the better early weapons in the game, and it's carried many players through the majority of Elden Ring. I want to state one thing real quick as far as the A tier goes. I'm not going to show every single one because there's a ton in the A tier, although we're going to go over all of them, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot that fits into the A tier, but Bloodhound's Finesse was one that I wanted to show off, and another one I want to show off that definitely makes it into the A tier is Waves of Gold on the Sacred Relic Sword. The range, the amount of holy damage, and the fact that the unique Ash of War here scales primarily with your Fate stat, I think entirely with your Fate stat, makes it excellent against death birds, mobs. Obviously, you can use this weapon for farming, but generally speaking, it's A tier because it has ridiculous range, is incredibly powerful. Next up, Ancient Lightning Spear on the Bolt of Grandsex. Now, I really enjoy Ancient Lightning Spear. It does have a drop off in some of the later New Game Plus cycles, but let's be real here. The range that you get on it, the fact that it can be boosted by it, the fact that it's chargeable in general, it makes it really powerful. And again, the range here is a high selling point. Ancient Lightning Spear for me is definitely in the A tier. And next up, Ghostflame Ignition, and if you didn't see my Death's Poker build where I buffed it up like crazy, you're about to see one of the Godskin Nobles blow up. Yeah, he kind of just disappears there, but anyway, it is a little bit slow, so it didn't make it in the S tier category for me, but overall, when you're able to use it and you can pull it off, it does immense damage, magic damage, and frost damage. It's absolutely A tier. So, for the A tier, we have Bloodblade Dance, which is on Eleonora's Pole Blade. A lot of bleed buildup. That's a really good one. Waves of Gold, which we went over. Established Order, which is on the Golden Order Greatsword, which does a lot of holy damage. And then we also have Ordovis' Vortex, which is on Ordovis' Greatsword, and that does a lot of posture damage as well. Ghostflame Ignition, which we showed off, that's an incredibly powerful one. And Thundercloud form, which is very good for lightning damage. Really cool Ash of War on that. Bloodhound's Finesse, which we went over on Bloodhound's Fang. And then the Rallying Standard on the Commander's Standard, because the buff that it gives you makes it A tier. And now we're on to page 2 of A tier. These are all A tier as well. Bubble Shower on the Envoy's Longhorn can destroy larger targets. Ancient Lightning Spear, obviously on the Bolt of Grandsex, we showed that off. Starcaller Cry on the Starscore's Greatsword is better now than ever. Wolf's Assault is essentially Frozen Lion's Claw. Corpse Piler in the Rivers of Blood is definitely A tier as well. We have Night and Flame stance on the Sword of Night and Flame, absolutely A tier. That's a fantastic one. Blade of Death, by the way, awesome on the Black Knife, has a lot of range, safety of use, and percentage damage. Cursed Blood Slice on Morgoth's Cursed Sword is better than ever now. And then Nebula, specifically on the Wing of Astal, can do immense damage. That's all A tier as well. Let's get into the B tier or the good tier unique Ash of Wars. So these are essentially good, unique skills that can do a lot of the game very well, in the sense of like most of the majority of bosses, you'll do fine with these, but they're not specifically overpowered ones like the first 2 tiers that we went over. And the first one that I'd like to show off and highlight here is Siluria's Woe on the Siluria's Tree, and that is a weapon you get that can do holy damage and physical damage from a distance. It's a really fun weapon to use with a unique weapon skill in Ash of War. It's something that's really fun to use too that I definitely recommend. I did a build for it not too long ago. This is absolutely a fun one that definitely fits into the good category. That's definitely one you're going to want to try out if you haven't, because if anything, as I mentioned, it's just an enjoyable, unique Ash of War to use. And the next one here is Spearcall Ritual on the Death Ritual Spear, which is fantastic for larger targets. It's basically a Mage's Envoy's Longhorn, and it can do posture damage as well. One thing while we have time real quick, if you're not on the Discord, definitely be sure to join that too. That's been really active lately. And if you're not subbed to this channel, now's the time to sub to this channel for all the awesome Elden Ring content and to be up to date with everything on each patch. And we've been doing a ton of videos lately, so definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button too. Yeah, Death Ritual Spear is something that you definitely want to consider as a mage sidearm weapon, and it has similar scaling to Death's Poker, so you can use that too and combo those two together. And the next one up here that I want to highlight is Marika's Hammer, which obviously has Goldbreaker on it, which you'll see towards the end of the game, and it's really fun to use. It can do a lot of damage in general between physical and holy, and it does a good amount of posture damage too. I know you can duplicate remembrances, so that's something you're going to want to do, because the last 2 ones, the Sacred Relic Sword is something you're going to want to grab for mobs and then also for farming and whatnot. And then Marika's Hammer is something you're going to want to grab if you just want to have an enjoyable Ash of War that can hit hard, take advantage of a hammer. Two-handing regular hammers, by the way, does good posture damage since they got a buff and it hasn't been nerfed since. Definitely a good one for strength faith builds. And let's get into the other skills category here, the other good skills that are on this list. First up is Magma Guillotine, which is on the Magma Worm Scale Sword, and that is a really powerful one too. It does both physical and faith. It kind of splits between strength and faith. Bloodblade, specifically on the Reduvia, is fantastic, especially in the early game. Transient Moonlight, as far as the weapon Moonveil goes, it definitely has a drop off in later New Game Plus cycles. That's why I put it into other good skills. Destined Death, which on the Black Blade is really powerful. Malachi's Black Blade does a lot of percentage damage, a good strength faith weapon. Spearcall Ritual we went over, and Goldbreaker is really good for posture damage too. Waterfowl Dance, which is really good for building up those successive attack hits. And then we have Radahn's Reign, which is great on his bow for larger targets. You can take down some larger targets with that. And then we have Wave of Destruction, which can be really powerful, especially in the early and the mid game, and Angel's Wings as well too. The Wing Scythe is good, giving you both holy damage and a little bit of bleed buildup as well. And you can also go in the air and get really good hyper armor on that one. And here is page 2. Miquella's Ring of Light on the Halo Scythe, that's something that can be really powerful as far as ranged holy damage. If you like whips, Flame Dance on the Giant's Red Braid is actually quite good. It can do a lot of damage and scales well with strength and faith. Regal Roar on Godfrey's Axe is pretty good. It's pretty in the middle of the pack, but it can be pretty powerful. Surge of Faith does a lot of fire damage. Onyx Lord's Repulsion on the Onyx Lord's Greatsword is another good skill. It's in the medium range. As far as Zamor Ice Storm, that's also quite good. You can get some frost buildup on that. Dynast Finesse is really good for avoiding attacks, a little bit better in PvP, or a lot better in PvP. Ruinous Ghostflame on the Helfenstiefel is quite good, and then I command the Neil as far as Godric's Great Axe. That's not too bad. It can do a lot of damage. It needs a little bit better hyper armor, and then we showed off Siluria's Tree, which is Siluria's Woe on the skill there, which has ranged holy damage. And now on to the not so good unique Ashes of War. Last but not least, here is a list of stuff that I would tell you to avoid. These are unique Ash of Wars and weapon skills that I would just generally avoid. And I want to start with Ice Lightning Sword, which is probably, given the fact that it sounds so cool, one of the most disappointing unique weapon skills. And as far as this skill goes, it's just something where even with the additional frost that you're given, katanas, there's so many that are just going to outclass this. The damage on it isn't too fantastic. As I mentioned in this video and several different times, I even attempted to buff this up. And this was one that's going to make the list I'm going to show you at the end. That again, is just incredibly disappointing and not too useful for the majority of bosses in Elden Ring. I know I got the posture break here to look a little bit impressive as far as that it goes. I think this was on clip 1.082 from 1.0 from patch 1.08, and it just doesn't matter though. It's still underwhelming. It's still not that good, and without further ado, here's our list to avoid. Gravity Bolt on the Falling Star Beast Draw is just not that great anymore without the posture damage. Devourer of Worlds is one of the most disappointing Ashes of War, unique Ashes of War on the legendary weapons. The big and the small bubble you can ignore because the Envoy's Longhorn is going to beat either one of those any day of the week. Gravitas is mainly for mobs. It doesn't really help me too much as far as bosses and whatnot, so it's a little bit underwhelming as far as the Meteoric Ore Blade. And then last but not least, we had Ice Lightning Sword on the Dragon Scale Blade, which is a very disappointing and low power Ash of War. And that was a lot to get through anyway. I meant to say get through, but yeah, that was a lot of information there. Hope that helps. I hope you guys can get a lot out of this as far as the best weapon, unique weapon skills in the game. I hope that was incredibly helpful. I tried to do the best I could as far as the slides go and keeping it entertaining in between with clips and whatnot. But these are undoubtedly the best, some of the best, and even some of the ones to avoid as far as weapon skills and unique Ashes of War. If you're not on the Discord, definitely be sure to join that. I started a Patreon too if anybody wants to support the channel further. If you're not subbed and you love overpowered PvE builds, be sure to check out all the awesome builds that are on my channel. There's like an entire library there now. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will catch you guys there.